Aloha and welcome to Truth in Movies. I'm JayDreamerZ, and today is the day of the week that I like to break down all the esoteric breadcrumbs that I find. I'm a huge movie fan, and so I like to share my insight because myself, like many other people, believe that there's a lot of truth, if not 100% complete truth in the movies. It's just been repackaged, and our truth, oftentimes the esoteric truth, or esoteric means those things that have been hidden from us, those are packaged up and rewritten and sort of cartoonified in the movies. Then they're presented right back to us. Now today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to add something to the stream today. We're going to take a break. After about 20 minutes or so, we'll take an intermission for about 3 minutes. That way, everyone can use the restroom or whatever. I know when I'm at the movies, I almost wish they would bring back intermissions so that I could go use the bathroom or go buy a soda or whatever it may be without missing anything and saying, what did I miss? What's going on? What's happening, right? So I hope you got your candy and your popcorn and everything. Today's movie is Constantine. So the movies are voted on. They're nominated and voted on. I think we had like 6 nominations this time, and this one had the most votes. So I decided to rewatch Constantine for about 7 hours today. Every time I do this, it takes about 7 hours, maybe 6. It depends. And I just go through the movie piece by piece, real slow, to make sure that there's nothing that I didn't miss, even if it's a movie I've seen before. Hey, what's up to everybody in the chat? Mother Dragon's in the chat. Did you see the picture? I posted a picture just for you on the stories mode. Stories tab on my main channel. All right, so let's get into this one. This one's Keanu Reeves. He's known for his appearance in esoteric films, right? Films that have clearly a deeper level meaning to them, right? They're not just pure absent-minded amusement, but he's in a lot of these. Quite notably, The Matrix. He's Neo, right? Or Ted S. Preston Esquire from Bill and Ted. So yes, Constantine. We're going to talk about Constantine here in just a minute. All right. So basically, let me give you the rundown real quick for those of you who have not seen Constantine. And I don't really give spoiler alerts ever. I just assume that if you click on this, you know that I'm going to be talking about the movie. All right. So with that being said, this movie is basically your classic good versus evil movie. This brings into question morals, morality, dogma, traditions, especially when it gets into religion. However, although religion has been a part of my personal truth-seeking path, that's where a lot of us started, was looking into religion because we knew there was more to life than just the day-to-day routine. There has to be some deeper meaning to it all. There has to be some sort of goal, there have to be some sort of concepts of right and wrong. And so a lot of us started off going through the religious route. And whatever your religious path was, that took you on your own unique journey that led you here today. Without any further ado, let's jump right into the movie. I'm just going to be summarizing a bunch. This is how the movie starts. Let me make sure I can move this here. Yes, I can. Okay, cool. All right, so this is how the movie starts. It's got this quote right here. It says, "He who possesses the spear of destiny holds the fate of the world in his hands. The spear of destiny has been missing since the end of World War II," according to this movie, right? Now, quick time out. Ted Theodore Logan. Thank you, William. Okay, so check this out. First of all, let's talk about the Spear of Destiny real quick. It says it's been missing since World War II. Well, the whole battle against the Nazis, the whole battle with the Nazis, usually it's America versus the Nazis, typically represented by people like Indiana Jones, right? That was his main go-to bad guy to fight, right? Was the Nazis. Nazis, oh man, everybody gets all in their feelings about Nazis and swastikas and all of that. Well, maybe, I don't know. I'm not siding with one or the other, but I do like to keep an open mind when talking about these things because I know it hasn't really been taught in its complete version in the schools. Now, I'm going to share a little bit of information with you. Hitler, okay, one of the most infamous people in the entire world, he was infamous not only for being the leader of the Nazis during the wars, but also he was infamous for being involved highly into the occult. The occult meaning the hidden things, the things that the public are not really generally aware of, right? He was deeply into the occult, not just so much that he was into it like it was a hobby, he liked to practice it, or he liked to look into magic or things like that. He actually sent out special missions to go find and look for these religious artifacts, right? Like the Spear of Destiny. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Spear of Destiny is the story of Jesus, right? Jesus, he was a good dude, depending on your perspective. I'm actually going to talk about that in a minute, too. We're not going to get too religious into it, though. But everyone knows the whole story behind his crucifixion, right? That he was put up on the cross and he died. Well, a lot of people don't know that he actually died because one of the soldiers, according to the story, took this spear, which is now known as the Spear of Destiny, put it into Jesus's rib cage, pulled it out in order to end it, right? Because basically because the Sabbath day was coming, and they had this rule saying that they didn't want any people hanging up on the crosses during the Sabbath, right? I don't know. It's just the rule that they had, and so they were like, "Hey, man, Sabbath is coming. The sun's setting. Let's take care of this. Go ahead and use the spear." So they used the Spear of Destiny, which obviously poked right through and got the blood all over it. That's a central part of this particular movie. Now, was the Spear of Destiny an actual spear? Was it a physical spear that or does it represent something even more powerful than just some sort of a weapon or tool, a crude weapon made by man that happened to get the blood of Jesus onto it, right? Because, what would that do, right? Really, that's the question. Like, okay, the blood of Jesus is on the spear. Like, what does that make it do now? Like, what can it do? So, I have a theory that maybe the Spear of Destiny is something completely different. Clarence Wilkerson's in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, what fam? Great movie, good info. They're a movie clearly looked over. Peace. Well, peace back to you. Oh, yeah, Sean Wheeler says, he's quoting Indiana Jones, Nazis. I hate these guys. Mother Dragon says, I just saw the image. Oh, cool, right on. I'll be popping in and out of the chat as we go. So that's what the movie starts off as. Now check this out, right? The movie's opening scene is somewhere in some sort of landfill-looking area in Mexico, okay? Now, for me, the Junkyard World imagery pops right out. For those of you who don't know, the Junkyard World is a portion of the plasma apocalypse. Basically, it's what our world turns into. Once the cyclical world reset comes to an end, gravity, as it's now known, is restored, and everything that did not get sucked up into the sky falls back down. Then you have these scavengers, these rummagers, that go through all of these artifacts. And that's where this whole concept of collecting these artifacts from the gods, from the age of the gods, from the age of technology, or the age of weaponry or advanced weaponry, right? Depends on the person's intention. People like Hitler were rumored to be looking for these artifacts or these relics from the age of weaponry or from the age of technology or the age of the gods, which we kind of are easing our way into right now if we're not full blown into it. All right, so as you can see, now sometimes if I'm watching on Amazon Prime, so I rented this one on Amazon Prime, and when you rent movies on Amazon, on the left, they've got this special X-ray feature, right? So it'll pop up the actors, it'll tell you their roles. Both of these are called scavengers. They're pretty much just sitting there in the dirt picking at rocks, okay? I don't know. See, maybe there was budget cuts or something, but yeah, they're just sitting there picking at rocks. They're looking for something, right? So that's how that's how this movie starts off. Now, one of the guys falls into this little hole that's in the ground, and he reaches down into it, and he pulls out this flag that has something wrapped inside of it. Now, the flag has the Spear of Destiny wrapped inside of it. Or this would actually more closely be like the tip of the Spear of Destiny, right? Because as you can see, it kind of ends right there. So there's not the actual spear portion of it, just the tip of it, right? So this is how they are portraying the Spear of Destiny in the movie. I think it's absolutely symbolic of something else, especially given that it was wrapped in this Nazi flag. And they don't explain this in the movie, but that's exactly why it's wrapped in the Nazi flag, because this is one of the artifacts, along with the Fountain of Youth and some other things, that Hitler was actively looking for. As not just Hitler, okay? It was all the rulers of the ancient world, okay, of the older world before us, okay? Every ruler, they're always looking for these things. That's why they're making strange trips out to Antarctica. That's why they want to buy Greenland. That's, you know what I mean? They're looking for these artifacts. Now, do they know what they really are? I don't know. Ted Aussie's in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, Aussie, the name, sorry, means divine spear. Oh, check that out. But I think it's thunderbolt. Names starting with O's, Osborne, Oswald, etc., even in African etymology, is usually a good, noble spirit. Kind of like Olaf. Wow, well, check that out. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think you might be onto something with it's a thunderbolt thing. We're going to talk about that too. And for those of you who watched my video about the blue fairy, the blue light, Project Bluebeam, we're going to get into that too. Now, as you can see, this is obviously the Nazi flag, right? I just drew a little swastika here for you, just in case you couldn't see it properly. Now, the swastika, right? It's got a bad rap, okay? The swastika has been a deeply lucky symbol throughout all time and all cultures and many religions. And, sometimes it's depicted going one way. Sometimes it's depicted going the other way. Maybe it just depends on which way the wind is blowing. I'll just leave it at that. All right, so the guy finds the Spear of Destiny, or the tip of the spear, right? He grabs it. All of a sudden, his eyes turn all bloodshot red, and it's almost like he's a man possessed. Possessed by what, I wonder? But he goes out. He's on this mission. He's got to take this spear somewhere. It doesn't explain why he's possessed. It doesn't explain where he's going, or all of a sudden why he has this mission, or maybe he was looking for it. Who knows, right? But the second he walks away, this car rams right into him, and he's pretty much unfazed. He walks right away. The car wraps around his body. It's a pretty intense scene. Now, the next thing you see as he's laying there recuperating, much like Jason Voorhees, who cannot die either, by the way, which is true, okay? There will come a time when it will be very difficult for people to die. When you've read in the ancient stories about how a long time ago, especially in various religions, mankind lived for a very long time, hundreds of years, sometimes thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, depending on which stories you read. What you don't read about in academia, what they don't teach you, is that the further back in time you go, the longer people lived. Actually, for some reason, they teach us the upside down of that. They teach us the opposite, that, oh no, the further back in time you go, people they lived into like their 20s because they didn't have toothbrushes. Stop. No, I'm sorry. That's not true. They lived a lot longer the further back in time you go. They may have had periods, little small hiccups in that time span when, for whatever reason, people's lifespans decreased a bit based on the conditions, right? But no, I have found, according to my research and studies into all of the world's religions, all of their ancient cultures and beliefs and stuff, the general consensus is that man lived a very long time. Anyhow, this guy who's not dying from the car that just slammed into him, all of a sudden has this sort of stigmata type thing appear on his arm. And as you can see, it's a circle with these 4 lines in it. Or you could say an X, or you could say a cross, or you could say a crucifix, or a cruciform, however you like to say that, right? That symbol represents the North Pole. So anytime you see the circle and the X marks the spot, right? It's always going to represent this right here. This is the North Pole on ancient maps, older maps, I should say, right? Sometimes it's drawn differently, and who knows? Maybe the geography has changed over time. Maybe during each one of these cyclical resets, the geography of our world, right? The formation of it, the world is terraformed each time a little differently. So it makes sense that the water might be in different places, but regardless, there was land at the North Pole on many of these ancient maps. Typically, it was a circular land, just like this, with 4 rivers shooting right out of it. Now, we're talking biblical because we're talking about this movie. This movie is highly steeped in Catholic catechism teachings and dogma from the Catholic Church, right? And in the beginning of the Bible, as it's describing the creation or the terraforming, or however you'd like to describe it yourself, it talks about these 4 rivers in the Garden of Eden, right? Which is alleged to have the fountain of youth as well. So whenever you see that, now remember this too, as above, so below. This is the below, or in between. It depends on how you want to look at it. If we get into hollow earth, right? But if we discard hollow earth, this is the below portion, right? This is mimicking, the land is mimicking something else that's happening above, in the sky above. Constantine, that's the name of the movie. So why did they pick the name Constantine? Well, first of all, this is a DC comic adaptation. I just want to let that be known. This movie was adapted from a DC comic book, right? Constantine. I forgot the name of the comic book. It's what was it? Like Hell something? Hell, I forget the name. It's Hell. I forgot, but they didn't want to call it Hell whatever because Hellboy came out that same year. So instead they renamed it to Constantine, right? So let's find out more about this name Constantine. We're talking about religion, specifically Catholic religion, right? Christianity, or its little section of Christianity called Catholicism. Now, there was a very famous Catholic, allegedly, named Emperor Constantine, right? It's one of the first things you'll learn about if you walked down a similar path as the one that I went down, right? Which is Christianity, getting into all the various forms of it, right? You learn about Constantine because he played a major part, right? There's a lot of debate when it comes to this particular figure because this was, his time was allegedly about 300 years after Jesus's time. Okay, so let's check this out. Constantine, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Constantine was the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. Time out. Wait, let's stop right there, okay? Okay, could be. Let me tell you, let me paint a picture of the time of Constantine, okay? Now, this is according to my own research, okay? So bear with me on that. But around the time of Constantine, okay, basically from, I don't know, maybe 100 AD, totally guessing, to about probably about 325 to 400 AD, all right? Here's what was going on around the Mediterranean areas. There were many different religions, many different beliefs, and a lot of these religions were very similar in that they all believed in a figure called Christ, or they all believed in a type of Christ. Now, the word Christ basically means anointed, more specifically anointed with crocodile oil from the Nile River. It comes from Egypt, and it means and implies shining one. Someone who is glimmering, glittering, shiny. That's what that means. Now, it wasn't always Jesus that was named the Christ by these various families around the Mediterranean. Every person had a different name for their Christ and their savior figures and their gods or whatever. And it was basically called today paganism. Today it's basically called paganism, or it has been taught as paganism. Pagan means hill people or somebody who is of the hills, okay? And what that implies is that they believed in many different gods, many different alien beings that have come and gone, and they have various names for them, right? It wasn't until around the time of Constantine, according to the story, that people started to actually choose one, and that's why Constantine became an important figure. Let me read the rest of this. All right, although he lived much of his life as a pagan and later as a catechumen, that means somebody who's basically learning Catholicism, he joined the Christian faith on his deathbed, being baptized by Eusebius of Nicomedia. So, allegedly, the story goes that this guy Constantine, Emperor Constantine, was a devout Christian convert on his deathbed, like at the very last second, right? How is that related to this movie? Well, because this movie is actually going to follow along with the story of Emperor Constantine in various ways, in that he wasn't really a believer per se until it came down to the very end. You'll see that here towards the end. It's got a pretty awesome ending. All right, let's read more about Emperor Constantine, who this character is absolutely named after. He played an influential role in the proclamation of the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, right? So I'll just summarize the Edict of Milan. This was a getting together of minds and a decree by Constantine himself to saying, hey, stop picking on all these different Christians out there, right? They were all called Christians. They not all of them believed in Jesus. Like they had their own Christ figures. Remember that, right? So there were little bickering popping up here and there over whose Christ was the real Christ, right? And so he issued this edict saying, hey man, stop all the fighting. I'm trying to establish order here. And remember, I'm not taking sides in any of this. I'm just telling you the story. And this edict basically said it's illegal to mistreat anyone who had a Christ for a religious figure, basically, which declared religious tolerance for Christianity in the Roman Empire. He called the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which produced the statement of the Christian belief known as the Nicene Creed. Now, some people will tell you that he canonized the Bible at this time. Maybe true, maybe false. There's a lot of debate in that particular community about that one suggestion. But one thing for sure is that he introduced this Nicene Creed. And it was a creed basically saying, here's our statement of faith. We believe this, we believe this. And it was a huge meeting of minds to basically figure out, is this Jesus guy a human, basically? Is he a human like us, or is he more than human? I'm simplifying it basically. So he was a pretty strong religious influence on the Christian world and what would become Christianity eventually. So as you can see, Christianity at this time took a lot of things from the pagan world, which were called the Christians of the time, essentially. All right, let's see here. I'll just read a little bit more of this. He called the First Council of Nicaea. Let's see. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre was built. Sepulchre is like where you put a dead person. It's basically an above-ground grave, from what I understand. Was built on his orders at the purported site of Jesus' tomb in Jerusalem and became the holiest place in Christendom. All right, let's just keep on going. All right, now the next thing you see here. Hey, Samyaza's in the chat. He says, JayDreamerZ, was it Hellblazer? Yeah, it was. Or Spark in the Flames. Yes, it was Hellblazer. So they didn't call it Hellblazer because, one, it sounds like Hellraiser, which was already a movie, and two, Hellboy was already coming out, so they renamed it Constantine. Another thing is that they were originally, this guy Constantine in the movie, Keanu Reeves' role, he was supposed to be a British guy. But not a lot of people were interested, and then so they just made him American, and all of a sudden everybody was really interested. Anyhow, this is the first scene. It opens up in Los Angeles, right? California. We're all familiar with Los Angeles. Shows you the window here in the background. So when you see a window, when you see glass being a close-up on it, get ready. You're going to see some plasma apocalypse symbolism. Of course, you got the tea kettle here that's shooting out the steam, which is your pressure release. Window, pressure release. Angels, the angels. That's what Los Angeles means. Actually, Los Angeles means a lot more. I don't know if you know this, but Los Angeles is not the entire name of that particular city. Let me bring this up real quick. So the official name for Los Angeles, the original, and there's also some debate about this, but in general, you get the gist of it, was El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora, la Reina de los Ángeles. What that means is the people of Our Lady, the Queen of Angels. Whoa. So this city is not named after angels, right? It makes it sound very Christian, No. This city was named after the Queen of the Angels, right? Now, if you read in the Bible, there's actually referred to this goddess that the God of the Bible was very much opposed to. And the goddess was known as the Queen of Heaven. They actually used to bake cakes for her during a certain time, and they were in the form of an X. You want me to show you what form they were in? Let me show you this. Hold on. Let me minimize this one. So they used to bake these cakes to the Queen of Heaven. in this shape, essentially. I personally think this is where pretzels come from. That's my guess. But they used to be called hot cross buns. Don't know if you guys knew that or not, but yes, that was the Queen of Heaven. People used to cook or make hot cross buns for the Queen of Heaven. That's what that was for. But yeah, so the official name for Los Angeles is El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Angeles. The people of Our Lady, the Queen of Angels. Interesting, isn't it? The more you know. All right, so let's move on to the next scene here. Smoke Break Music's in the chat. It says, JayDreamerZ, can't wait to get off work to watch this full video. Great info and perspective as always. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right, let's check this out. So, Constantine, right? You might just see a picture like this and go, oh, okay, well, it's Keanu Reeves. So what? So that's Constantine? All right, whatever. But no, let's focus in on this. They chose his outfit, right? Yes, I know he probably wears this in the comic books, but why does he wear black and white? Why is he dressed like that, right? Black tie, white shirt, black jacket, Cadillac. I don't know how the song goes. Black and white symbolism, always, every time, across the board, represents space, but specifically space travelers or beings who are from the beyond, out there, beyond our skyline, right? Just like the other movie, the Skyline, Beyond Skyline. That's what space looks like. That's what I believe. That's where I've come to the understanding that space is basically white, and it's got pockets of little realms that are dark worlds, right? They're covered. They're covered up, so those are the black spaces on the checkerboard or the chessboard. Now, the first thing that happens here is our chain-smoking superhero, our protagonist. He walks in. He's got a mission. This girl right here is possessed. Okay, she's possessed by a demon. He's coming in to, there was already a priest. There was a father figure already there. He tried to do an exorcism. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, first and foremost, a lot of these things are true. Okay? But people have been taught a watered down, diluted, cartoonified version of how to deal with these things because they believe that they're dealing with the cartoonified version. They don't understand the reality behind the truth of the matter, the truth behind all of these things that are cartoonified in our world today. Okay, what do I mean? So here's what I mean. This girl is possessed by a demon. Okay, and it's not good news. Basically, first thing this guy does, John Constantine, he walks up to the shades, throws open the shades, lets the sunlight in, and this chick has a bad reaction. She's like, ah. So he knows, he understands the effect that sunlight has on particular beings who are not of this realm, right? For some reason, they're photophobic. I've talked about that before. I absolutely think that many of the Fantazoids, which are what I call these beings who flood into our world during these cyclical resets, right? From other realms or from beyond, right? Sometimes they take the form of monsters. Sometimes they look like giant insects. There's many different forms of those beings, just like we have many forms of beings here on our world, right? Some are even bipedal. I call those the bipedal Fantazoids or space travelers, whatever you want to call them, right? But he understands they have a phobia to the sun. They're photophobic. They're light sensitive to our local sun, to our skylight, to our point of focus that is shooting down. And it's a night light, basically, because we live in a dark world. I talk about that a lot, right? So he knows that they're photophobic. And they are. That's why vampires are photophobic. Vampires represent the elven race, or the El, or the Elu, the Elohim, etc., and so on and so forth, right? The angels, the demons, it goes on and on. They don't like this bright light on them. Why? Because space, I think, is probably more of an ambient light everywhere, right? And it's not empty either. It's very full. And you would think it's full of light too, right? I mean, at least in the religious world, when someone dies and they go up to heaven, they're in the light, right? There's light everywhere. Well, I mean, if heaven is up and space is up, it makes sense. Why would space be dark? Why would space be empty and nothing and black? You know what I mean? Like, space sucks if that's what it is. I don't want to check it out. I'd rather be here where everything is and I can see stuff. At least that's my opinion on it. So I don't think space is black. I think it's more of a opalescent, pearlescent, shimmering kind of color with pockets of dark worlds in it. All right, let's check this out. So here's what happens. He starts freaking out. He's like, whoa, this is a serious demon. He calls it a soldier demon, right? And so he goes right up to this window and just breaks it wide open. Now, the first image in this movie was a window, a glass window, right? Now they're zooming in on a window again. Like I said, you have to watch out when they show you glass breaking, but especially when it's breaking over and over and over, they are telling you something in the movie. They're conveying a message. They're stressing on a particular point. He breaks the window. It's clear there's a lock, right? They just open it up, right? But no, he breaks the window. It turns out he might have needed more room, maybe, I don't know, but he definitely breaks the window. That's just symbolic, in case you're new to my channel, of our sky breaking, okay? During these cyclical resets that happen, the sky breaks, okay? And the sky is the waters above, the glass above, the dome above, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a snow globe, okay? Very simply put, and it breaks occasionally, which allows these Fantazoids to come in. And that's what we're dealing with. The invasion of demons. Hell on earth from time to time. Depends on your perspective. I don't particularly think it's hell on earth. I think it's exciting. But that's me. But if you're a religious person and you're highly devout, you might not see it that way. And I understand. I totally get it. And I respect that. All right. So here's what he does. He says, I need a mirror now. And I'm like, whoa, we've got a close-up on a window with depressurization of the kettle pot. We've got a close-up on a window breaking. Now he's asking for a mirror to be placed above his head. I did a whole video about the mirror symbolism, right? The mirror above us, walking through the mirror, going through the mirror and getting into other strange worlds. This is exactly what you see. It's just shown to you in Hollywood all of the time. Hey, Corey L says, long time for me, I'll stick with La La Land. Ted Ozzy says, I believe Gaia was hated in Greek mythology, seen as a villain. However, there is a belief that Zeus may be a demiurge figure, so there may be flipped roles in effect. There's always the flipped roles in effect, especially down here, right? Everything's upside down and backwards. Or as Alice says in Alice in Wonderland, everything that is, isn't, and what should be, is, I don't remember. You get the point, okay? She's basically saying the world's upside down. Just like in Stranger Things, they have the upside down. Vanessa V says, hi, JayDreamerZ, and the good vibe tribe. Can't stay for this awesome breakdown, but I'll definitely watch it later. All right, well, I'll see you later. All right, so he has everyone hold the mirror above him, okay? This represents the dome. This represents the sky itself, the atmosphere, whatever you want to call it up there. I personally believe that there's a physical barrier up there. And it has to be, because it's going to break from time to time and allow the plasma to come into our world. So he holds the mirror above his head. This is the roof of our world, okay? Everyone's holding it up. They're making a little dome right above him, basically. And he says, close your eyes. Remember we talked about that, right? Remember how we said we were talking about not looking into the deadlights last week? We were talking during the Plasma Apocalypse Thursday. We were saying, hey, man, why is it bad to look into the deadlights? Why is it bad when the plasma comes down to keep your eyes open and to check it out and to watch what's going on? We're constantly being told, don't look into the lights, right? Close your eyes. Don't look. Or Indiana Jones, right? Someone pointed out that when they opened up the Ark of the Covenant, right? The ark, the fish bowl, the bow, whatever you want to call it. Okay, there's different ways that it's referred to. When they open up the Ark of the Covenant, all these ectoplasmic spirits come out, and Indiana Jones is like, don't look at them, close your eyes. And guess what? They end up surviving because they didn't look. So Constantine knows this. He has esoteric knowledge. He has knowledge that these other people don't know, man. They're just regular people. Of course they're going to look. They're like sheep. Right? They're like, oh, what's that? What's that? They're going to check out everything. But he understands that there is a method to this madness. You see what I'm saying? It's not all witchcraft and spells and trick-or-treating and cartoons. And no, that's not what it is. There is a reality to it. And he touches on that throughout the movie. He has a little sidekick. What was that guy's name that played the sidekick? I totally forgot. He's the kid on Transformers. What was that kid's? Shia LaBeouf? Something like that. Anyways, that was his little sidekick. And he tells them it's not always how it is in the books, right? Or comic books or movies or whatever you want to replace with that, right? So anyway, they hold the mirror up above him. He says, close your eyes. This guy right here is closing his eyes for a little bit. He ends up opening his eyes and bad things happen to him. They're all closing their eyes. You got the mirror above. He says, don't look. Whatever you do, don't look. He stresses it twice, right? So he's doing his job as a spaceman, as a representative of somebody from beyond up there, right? That's why he's wearing the black and white. He knows what's going on. He knows how these things work. They hold up the mirror, and guess what? There's this demonic entity, we'll call it. And I'm going to talk a lot about this entity in a bit. It all of a sudden appears in the mirror. It sees itself, and as the girl who's possessed, she smiles. She's like, oh, wow, check that out, right? And then the demon all of a sudden gets sucked up into the mirror. Now he's stuck in the mirror, and Constantine knew this was going to happen. The demon starts pounding away at the mirror. He's trying to get out of the mirror so that he can come into this world and cause havoc, right? Does that sound familiar to anybody? Samyaza says, JayDreamerZ, he told him to also move the car. That's right. Well, he looked out of the window and he was telling Shia LaBeouf. He's like, hey man, move the car. For good reason too. So this reminded me of one of my other favorite movies as far as horror movies go, which is the Freddy Krueger franchise, and specifically the Dream Master, Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. So this is the part I want to really focus on. There was a rhyme in this particular movie, right? The Dream Masters. How do you defeat Freddy Krueger? Everyone wants to know how to defeat these people. Freddy's on one side of the cyclical plasma reset that happens to our world, and Jason Voorhees is on the other side. One doesn't like water, one doesn't like fire, okay? They're the same entity. I'll just share that with you right now. All right, so in order to kill Freddy Krueger, there was a rhyme that you had to remember. Now I lay me down to sleep. Oh, let me pull it up for you. And we'll make this a little bigger here. Oh, well. I'll just read it. All right, it says, now I lay me down to sleep. The master of dreams, my soul I'll keep. In the reflection of my mind's eye, evil will see itself and evil will die. That's what that reminded me of. In this particular scene, he's got a little reflective piece of glass. I want to say it was like a piece of the stained glass window or something, but he takes the glass, a mirror, however you want to call it, right? Shows it to the evil entity. The evil entity goes, and it just starts to die. Why? Because it sees itself, right? So there's a reality to that. This right here, what you're looking at, is the cartoonified version of the very, very real origin of this, right? Well, we'll get to that in just a second. It's pretty obvious. All right, so let me... I thought I pulled it up. I thought I had an image of Pennywise. I guess not. Well, I'll just tell you, in the new Pennywise movie, or the new It movie, Chapter 2, right? There's this another similar scene where It, or Pennywise, I'm sorry, who is possessed by It. Pennywise is in this sort of hall of mirrors in Chapter 2. And there's this iconic scene where he's standing right on the other side of this glass wall, and he's looking right at this kid that he wants to just devour. And the first thing he does is he goes like this. And he sticks his tongue out, way out. I wish I had a picture. I totally thought I did. You know what? I'm sure we'll end up breaking down Stephen King's It and its sequel. I'm sure that's going to happen. So if it does, I'll share that with you guys. But anyhow, Pennywise's tongue goes out like a dog, like the tongue on the Snapchat little feature, you know, when you're a dog and you're like, well, that's how long Pennywise's tongue was in this particular scene. Licks the glass, right? The reason Pennywise's tongue was so long, it's an over-exaggerated symbol, for the plasma that comes out of the hole in the sky, right? That's why a lot of these ancient gods, they're seen like sticking their tongue out at you. Like, why, you know? Why do they have them sticking their tongue out? Why is that even something people do? Because it symbolizes the plasma, the pink tongue coming out of the hole, coming down into our world as the god above. That's what that symbolizes. Now, Pennywise says, screw the tongue thing, I'm getting in. And he starts going, bam, bam, bam. He starts just breaking his face against the glass. He wants to break that glass and come on in, just like this demon wants to break the glass and come into our world, just like Cthulhu or whatever monsters are up there just on the other side of the ice, or frozen in ice if you're King Ghidorah, you know what I mean? They're all breaking against the glass or the ice or however it's depicted, breaking that glass, breaking that window, breaking that clear substance up there in order to get in, right? Corey L says, JayDreamerZ, what about Dracula? Ha! Cannot see his reflection? That's right. Well, it's basically the same thing, right? So the vampires, including Dracula, all represent the bipedal Fantazoids, or the Anunnaki, or the aliens, or the angels, whatever you want to call them. People call them different things, right? And we'll probably, if somebody recommends and it gets voted on, we'll do a vampire movie in the future. All right, let's keep going forward. Spiral staircase. I told you, you're going to see these in the movies. They're always showing you the spiral staircase. Is it because everyone is just a huge Victorian house aficionado, or they really love the spiral staircases and it's just so deep? It's because there's something to this spiral shape, specifically the staircases, which take you from one place to another, right? Or sometimes, they'll show you elevators and stuff like that. But the spiral staircase is a huge one because it represents the Einstein-Rosen bridge that happens, or the vortex, or whatever you want to call it, the portal that opens up in the sky, which is going to move in a spiral fashion. And that's what that is. That takes you from one place to another. So, Keanu Reeves goes into his new place here, and he's got the black and white floor. It doesn't have to be checkerboard. I know a lot of people think it does, like, if it's not checkerboard, it's not Illuminati, right? Well, that's not true. It's just black and white floor represents being up there in space and walking around above all these various realms that exist down there in the grandness of space. Corey says 910 Freddy's back. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, you guys are doing the thing. Okay, so yeah, you're right. That there are a couple of rhymes when it comes to Nightmare on Elm Street, right? This was one particular rhyme in that one movie, that one part 4, okay, that they had learned in order to kill Freddy. Okay, so it cuts to a shot of this girl right here. She's going to be one of the other protagonists. And for some reason, now remember, these are all props, okay? It's not somebody's actual house where they live. Smoke Break Music, hey, just donated $5 and says, keep up the great work. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Have some popcorn. All right, so there's this picture right here. You can see it's got this sort of Chinese look to it, this Asian look. It's a red sky. They featured the red sky purposefully. And then you've got these little red lights right here. Now, I believe that these lights, the reason that this tradition of, like, you know how people light up these like bags and float them up into the air, and it's like a festival of lights, and there's these floating bags, or there's these string with these little red balls on it or whatever. I believe that represents various forms that the plasma takes when it comes into our world, including ball lightning. That's what it's called today, okay? But what we're going to see is going to be so much more than ball lightning, because right now we live in a minimal state of plasmic activity, right? Plasma activity. But once that sky opens up, the world depressurizes, the plasma comes in, it's going to fill our world up with that plasma, that electromagnetics, and that life and that magic. And you're going to see a lot more of these huge balls of plasma all over the place. That's one form that it can take, which is, like I said, it dawned on me the other day, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Oh my God, the corniest movie in the world is real. Like, I got really excited about that. Anyhow, so that's that girl's house. Oh, and also, like, the way that they shaped buildings back then is because the world had an influx of electromagnetic energy, right? Tesla and some other people before our time today, before energy was capitalized and, they charged everyone for energy. In the old world, before the plasma started to dissipate, there was energy everywhere. People themselves had energy. Uncle Fester could put a light bulb in his mouth because he represents one of the bipedal Fantazoids from space, vampire, whatever you want to call him. And he is full of electromagnetic power in his body. They didn't need to plug stuff in, right? They didn't. They just needed to create stuff so that it drew out energy from around them, including the buildings that they lived in, just like this pagoda-looking building right there. They were very pointy back then, right? They didn't have these Lego square look to them like we do today, right? All right, excuse me. So Keanu Reeves looks up and he sees this billboard. They actually have a lot of strategically placed billboards all throughout this movie, and I love finding them, right? He looks up and it says, "Your time is running out." Let's look at this billboard for a quick second, right? Let me just make this a bit bigger here. Check this out, right? Forget the car, okay? Just forget the car. Look around. There is fog. What kind of car commercial is this, right? Fog is associated with bad stuff happening in the movies. That's because when the world depressurizes, the air spreads out, quite rapidly. Rapid depressurization causes fog. to just instantly appear, right? Or mist, or however you want to look at it, right? And it says, your time is running out, right? And then it says, Chevity Equinox. Well, wait, interesting. A lot of people would look at this during the movie and go, oh, ha, 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 it's like this message, and he's reading into it. No, he's not reading into it. This is a breadcrumb of life. People like him and people like myself and many of you out there are able to look around and say, whoa, someone's talking to me. I get it. I'm listening. Something's going on. Clues are being left to me in this crazy puzzle of life. Actually, this just happened. I went to Jimmy John's to get their, I think it was a number 6. It's like the veggie one. Jimmy John's is a sandwich place, by the way. So I just went there today, and the guy rings me up and he's like, your total is 1027. And I'm like, what? 1027. I'm like, bro, do you ever see like the same number just pop up in random weird places? I'm like, that's my number, bro. 1027. And he knew what I was talking about, because he was like, what? Oh, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like 4 random digits in a row, man. 1027 all over the place. That's my personal number. I'm still searching that one out. But this is a great example of it, right? When you can read the signs quite literally. Sometimes they're actually signs. Your time is running out. Fog everywhere. Equinox. Put it together, right? Corey L says, JayDreamerZ, could ball lightning produce a nuclear-like explosion? If nuclear weapons are real, of course. I have no idea. Let me know if you find out. I don't know if they could produce any explosions. I don't know a lot about it. I just know that's one of the shapes it can take, right? When the plasma comes into our world, it's going to take lots of shapes. It's going to be St. Elmo's fire, just tickling right off the tops of various structures and trees and stuff like that. It's going to be ball lightning. It's going to be tentacle looking, streaming through the sky, like kind of like how you saw in Ghostbusters, like the original Ghostbusters. Ted Ozzy says, oh, well, he's talking to someone else. All right, let's keep on going. All right, so check this out. So Constantine, he's about to cross the street, and all of a sudden this crab walks across his foot or his hand down there on the ground, whatever that is right there. There's this random crab in Los Angeles, right? They don't typically have crabs just walking around in LA. I know, because I used to live in that area. All right. So when you see stuff like this, okay, like for example, when you saw all those crabs on Pirates of the Caribbean, remember when he went down into Davy Jones' locker and there was that weird scene with the crabs that looked like rocks and there's just crabs everywhere? The crab or the lobster or these types of exoskeletal sea life represent, and pretty much, in my opinion, are remnants of the Fantazoids. They represent a particular class of Fantazoid that was able to survive in our oceans when it fell down from the sky above. It found refuge in the waters of the great deep. And over time, those giant Fantazoids shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank as all other life, tends to do after this event happens. When the event first happens, right now we're all very small. When this event happens, the world depressurizes, there's an influx of plasma and life and probably a renewed source of oxygen and other life-giving properties. Everything will start getting bigger and bigger and bigger and living longer and longer and longer, right? But over time, it starts to dissipate and then things start to shrink back down, which is where we are today. We're in the Smurf world, a little tiny world of little people. Well, this is a little tiny Fantazoid. This is a little crab. I talk about that a lot. People will say they look alien, right? Oh, it looks so alien. That's because it is alien. All right, so this guy, Keanu Reeves, he needs to get into this special club for fringe people, for psychics and people who have various powers, right? Whether it be mental abilities, psychic powers, or whatever it is, right? They have electromagnetic influx all throughout their body, and it gives them power. Just like after the plasma apocalypse happens, there's going to be this electromagnetics everywhere connecting people, right? So a lot of people are going to develop psychic abilities quite quickly. So we find out he has psychic abilities as well. In order to get into this club, which by the way, as many people probably already know, is all red. It's all red for a reason. Red it doesn't represent blood. Okay, blood is a couple different colors, but that's what the popular theory is on red. It just hits us to the core because red is blood, and so we automatically go danger. No, I'm sorry, that's not where that comes from. The danger of it, the excitement of it, the magic and the mystery of the color red come from the time when our sky turns red after one of these apocalyptic cycles, okay? We're in the blue sky right now. We're going to go into a red sky, a red shift, right? So he's psychic. So he shows him a card, and he has to tell him what's on the other side of the card. Two frogs on a bench in this case, right? The other guy, Shia LaBeouf, he wants in his club so bad, man, but he's not psychic, so he doesn't get it. So he just hears him. He walks in. He's like, two frogs on a bench. Casually tries to go in. He's like, the bouncer's like, no, stop right there, right? Anyway, it was a pretty fun scene. All right, so then Constantine goes home. He's depressed. He's not in a good mood. He's basically the kind of person that's like does not like himself very much, and therefore he doesn't like life very much, right? He's kind of doesn't see the point in anything. And not only that, but he's getting fed up with the battle between good and evil. He sees it as very full of hypocrisy, right? It's very hypocritical. And so he doesn't like it. And he doesn't even want to be neutral about it. He's just developed a very bitter attitude towards it, right? And which is something that he's working on throughout this movie. Now, this is a crucial scene, right? Some people would say they included this scene to show what a jerk he is or that he doesn't care about life, which is a part of it, right? But he takes this glass cup and he traps a spider on the inside of it. Then he opens it a little bit and he blows his smoke from his cigarette into the glass, and then he seals it off. On one hand, morally speaking, the energetic property that we're talking about is he's a jerk. He doesn't care about life. That's what that's portraying. But the physical manifests from the energetic. So the physical reality to this is that the spider represents the plasma that comes into our snow globe-like topped world, right? That has, remember, the glass is basically the sky. And then the smoke coming in represents the mist and the fog. And then he traps it in there. That's exactly what happens to our world. That's why they show that. Corey L says, JayDreamerZ, so red rum is actually red room or red sky. Could be. That's a good one. I mean, it's murder backwards. I think we all know that. But hey, you could be onto something. Red rum. I see that. Corey L also says, JayDreamerZ, also listen to Red Skies by The Fix. I may or may not remember to do that, but if I happen to come across it, I will check it out. I promise. All right, we're going to check out the next slide. Then we're going to take a quick intermission. Ooh, intermission time. All right, the chat will be up on the screen during intermission, so feel free to chat and everything. All right, so the next thing he does is he needs to go into hell. All right, Constantine has this ability to sort of astral travel into hell, or this realm called hell. Now check this out. When they show hell, you would think that hell would be portrayed like underground with huge columns of rock everywhere, little devils running around with pitchforks or whatever. It's an entirely different thing. It's actually the same thing as where we are now. Check this out. It is an orange-red sky with buildings. This is Los Angeles. That's where he currently is. So he didn't really even go anywhere. Some people would say, well, he shifted into another dimension that's coexisting with this one. That's actually what the movie is saying too. But I'm not so sure about that. I think that what we're looking at is we're getting a glimpse into either a distant past or the not so far off future, where this is exactly what the world is going to look like in some places, right? Especially those places that have huge electrical towers called skyscrapers that are going to attract the plasma. The world's going to be set on fire. Not all of it, right? But much of the world will be set on fire. Even biblically speaking, it doesn't say the whole world is set on fire, but I believe it was like 1/3, basically. 1/3 of the trees, 1/3 of the plants, whatever it may be, right? But the plasma comes down and burns a lot of stuff, wreaks havoc. It's electricity, right? So anyhow, here you see what looks like a scene from the Terminator. Remember on Terminator, when the Terminator's mom, no, I'm just kidding. What was her name? I forgot her name. What was the main old lady? She's back, by the way. They're making another Terminator movie, which is about the plasma apocalypse again. But anyway, when Sarah Connor, that's right. Thank you. All right. So Sarah Connor has this vision of doomsday, which we're going to talk about after the break too. Or Domesday. That's going to be interesting. She has a vision of doomsday. She has a vision of judgment day, right? It's all the same stuff. It's the plasma apocalypse cycle. And when she has her vision of the world, it looks a lot like this too, right? So that's what that is. That's sort of, this is the post-apocalyptic world. It's always this orangey, rusty kind of a color because of the plasma that comes down, changes the color of the sky, sets everything on fire. There's gonna be a lot of smoke everywhere on top of fog everywhere. And so a lot of that orange and red and those types of colors that plasma produces and fires produce, right? Fire is a type of plasma, will be reflected all over the place. Hey, I just want to read out, before we go into our intermission, I got a donation from Jessica Coker. She donated and says, I love this movie. Thank you for taking your time to make a video on it. I appreciate you. Well, I appreciate you too, Jessica. Thank you very much. That was really kind of you. Let's all take a quick intermission. We're going to take a little break. We'll come back in about 3 minutes or so once the song stops playing. And I'll see you guys here in a bit. Feel free to stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, grab a snack, grab some water, whatever you got to do. And we'll be back in a minute. Okay, intermission's all done. Hopefully you guys could grab something to eat, take a quick break, grab something to drink. We're talking about the movie Constantine, and we're breaking it down. We've already gone over who was Emperor Constantine. Obviously, the movie is alluding to the Emperor Constantine because this movie is steeped in Catholic dogma and stuff. Actually, I do want to say that on my stories mode tab on my main channel, right? If you tap on the stories mode, that I actually went into my local Catholic church today in order to sort of do a preview for today's video. So check that out if you'd like to as well. All right, now, we're talking about Constantine being in hell. Just for a moment, he's sort of astral traveling, okay? And he's getting a glimpse of hell, which to me is this post-apocalyptic future, basically. In the movie, it's basically portrayed as the present, all right? But let's look at these monsters that are everywhere in this place called hell in the movie. Now, if you look at this with my mindset, put yourself in my shoes, we're looking at these demons, right? In the movie, they're demons, and this is what they look like. Let me just go ahead and I'll blow up this particular demon here. There we go. All right, so these are the demons that live in hell, and they're everywhere. They're all over the place. You can see there's one here. You see how they have these really long arms, and they sort of like crawl around on their arms and legs? This is not the first movie this is not the only movie where this same exact type of creature exists, right? You've seen this creature before. This is a specific creature that's called a Fantazoid. These ones right here, while they might not be bipedal because they don't walk around on their feet, they walk around on their arms and their legs. You've seen these creatures in Rim of the World on Netflix. Netflix has an original movie called Rim of the World, all about the plasma apocalypse. This creature makes an appearance in the Rim of the World. It makes an appearance in, sometimes they'll slightly alter it, like they did for, what was that movie where it was like, shh, like I forgot what the name of the movie was. I totally broke it down one time. Someone in the chat helped me out. What was the name of that movie where everyone had to be real quiet throughout A Quiet Place. That's what it was called, right? These creatures are in A Quiet Place. These creatures are in Love, Death, and Robots in one of the very last episodes in Love, Death, and Robots, right? These are Fantazoids. You can tell by their color. First of all, let's look at the color. They're that sort of white color that also has it's white, but it has a little bit of color to it, right? Sort of a bland, pale kind of a white with slightly colorized look to it, right? And I call these the hellhounds. That's what I call them, right? These are the predator class of Fantazoids. These are the ones that are out to grab, sting, bite, infect, kill, whatever it may be. These are the ones on a mission. Okay, they're down here. They're the minions of the plasma itself when the plasma comes down into our world to do its spring cleaning or to clean house, basically, right? And these demons, are missing half their head. They're missing their whole top part, basically their brain, right? And their eyes. Well, this is really interesting to me because I'm starting to see a lot of symbolism that indicates that many of these Fantazoids, specifically the predator ones, might not be able to see. They might actually see in a completely different way than we do with our eyes, right? If anything, they might use an amplified hearing, auditory response, right? Just like they do in A Quiet Place, right? That's why you had to be so quiet, because these Fantazoids, they had these like internal ears that sort of opened up and it amplified. They can listen and hear everything that's going on. And so just like a bat, when it uses a sonar, right? It shoots out its echolocation, comes back, goes into the bat's brain, and it paints a sort of picture of everything around it, right? So I'm wondering, and I'm thinking that there might be some types of these Fantazoids that don't have eyes like we have eyes, or if they do, they might not have the best eyesight, right? So they probably rely a lot on the hearing. So we know there's the old axiom, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, right? And I think that some of these movies lately have sort of touched base on that. The other thing is they don't have a brain of their own. Okay, they're clearly moving around about. They have a hive mind. They're on a mission. They're working together. They have one goal and one goal only, which is to kill, basically. Just like Jason Voorhees, just like Freddy Krueger. Oh, Dennis L says they smelled him, right? They smell fear. That's right. So that's the other thing is, like I was talking about, the plasma possessed, those who are possessed by the plasma, while it's here, while it's still connected to its source, the plasma is here on a mission, right? And it will program whatever it inhabits to help it out, to create thralls for the plasma. The thrall is a slave, basically, and it's a slave to the will of the plasma. So if your energy matches the energy, which is kill and destroy and get rid of things, then that type of a person could be possessed by the plasma in order to do its bidding, right? So they don't really have a mind of their own. That's what that's symbolizing to me, right? All right, so let's go on to this really weird scene, right? I think most people remember this. Oh, Pitch Black. That's right. Thanks, Sean. Sean Wheeler says, JayDreamerZ, Pitch Black also. They also had those Fantazoids in Pitch Black as well, right? As well as there was another movie about being quiet. I think it was on Netflix, but they had these sort of bat-like creatures or whatever. You had to be super quiet, right? It's the same thing. Hollywood is passing you back truth that's just been made into story form. That's all it is, right? These are the legends. This is all the legends and the myths. They are all real, and they're just handed right back to us in story form, which are our movies. All right, so this guy, he's one of the, they call him a half-breed. All right, Keanu Reeves refers to these angels or demons that can exist here with us on our plane, half-breeds. Why does he call them that? Well, I think that is giving homage to the Nephilim, or the fallen angels that intermixed with mankind, right? They came down here. There were certain rules that they have when they leave space and they enter into a new realm. One of those rules is mind your business, okay? Just mind your business, that's all. What's that from? Tell me what that's from. That's funny. I'll be surprised if anybody knows. Anyway, so they had these rules. One of them is you definitely don't intermarry, okay? You don't mix your DNA with the new species that you just encountered, right? You are to be a watcher only. You're not to get involved. You're not to share all of your technology and stuff. Allow them and respect them enough to figure things out on their own, right? You know, it also talks about how these particular individuals are supposed to be influencers only. Right? They're allowed, there's like a loophole in their laws. They're allowed to influence. They're not allowed to directly change. They're not allowed to just give you all the answers or tell you the meaning of life or whatever. You know, not allowed to just expose all of the secrets of the universe to you or whatever secrets they know that we don't, right? But they are allowed, according to the movie, to influence, to drop little clues and see what happens and see how we respond to it, which, you know, some people, like Constantine, think that that's kind of messed up. So here's one of those demons. Now, he is plasma possessed, as you can see by his eyes. When the eyes are red, when the eyes are lit up like that, that means they have an influx of plasma, right? And a lot of times, yeah, the prime directive, very good. A lot of times, the eyes will light up red like this because they're plasma possessed, right? Like we had talked about. And let's see here. So this is a liquor store, and what's happening right now is he's watching this guy. Let's talk about this guy. Let me make this a little smaller now. Now this is one of the Catholic priests, right? He goes by the epithet Father, right? They call him Father. He said, "Yes, Father." So this is the guy that tried to do the exorcism to begin with the little girl in the mirror up top, right? He tried to. He couldn't do it, right? There was something wrong. He couldn't quite do it, and so he had to call Constantine to get it done, right? Well, there's probably a good reason why he couldn't get it done. He is a serious alcoholic, right? He has this, he's just somebody who drowns himself away in alcohol all the time. I'm not taking sides. I'm not saying alcohol is good or bad, but what I am saying is this is portrayed in movies. Things like this are portrayed as sinful or as bad or as evil, right? So, because this guy has some sort of problem, some sort of inner problem with himself, sin, as it would be described in the religious world or in the Christian arenas, right? That might be why he couldn't perform this exorcism. Quite possibly. Just like Jason Voorhees. I have watched with Jenny all 5 of the first Friday the 13th, right? Part 6 is coming up next, right? And what I have noticed is a serious trend in a lot of this. I love watching these movies. One of the things is I watch to see who's going to get killed. The moment somebody starts doing drugs, boom, you know they're going to get killed. They start drinking alcohol, I know they're going to get killed. They start having sex, they're definitely going to get killed, right? These are all sinful things, and people who are plasma possessed, they go around getting rid of all of the sinful people, all the bad guys in the world, right? Like I said, I'm not taking sides on the issue or morality of, you know, what people see as good or bad. All I'm saying is stuff like this is a symbol. It's showing you, it symbolizes somebody who has internal problems, meaning it's bad. They're a bad person, according to Hollywood. Okay, not according to me, but according to Hollywood. They're showing you people that are sinful or evil or bad. Right? Bad stuff happens to them in these movies, especially when you have these plasma-filled entities that are there to wipe to clean out the world, right? To rid it or to fill it with evil, however you look at it, right? Anyways, this guy's an alcoholic. He goes into some crazy stuff happens. He no longer has his little amulet of protection. He goes into a liquor store and he just grabs a bottle, which is insane. He didn't even pay for it or anything. He just grabs a bottle. He's trying to drink it and it's all stuck in there. It won't come out. Right? So this is sort of a torturous way that this demon right here is messing with him as he's drinking some water and everything, right? So this guy's trying to drink the alcohol. It won't come out of the bottle. So he goes around grabbing different bottles of alcohol. He doesn't grab a Sobe right behind him, right? He doesn't grab anything else. He just goes straight for the alcohol. He's like, the wine isn't coming out. So he grabs vodka or whatever, cracks it open. It still doesn't come out. He doesn't know what's going on, right? And a lot of times, especially like in Stephen King movies, remember when we broke down Maximum Overdrive, right? And I showed you there was that one religious guy, just like in The Mist, there was that one religious lady. She's super fanatic about it, right? These people always end up being killed because of their hypocrisy, because they're representing something bigger than themselves. And meanwhile, they're not following their own advice. They're not doing good. They're actually using it manipulatively to control other people. So this guy is represented and depicted as one of those people. Also, that's why these Catholic people, they wear the black and white symbolism, as you can see there. They are representatives or priests of those who come from outside of our world, right? They are the Kohen. Here's another shot of that as well. Semyaza says, mind your business, Fresh Prince. Very good. Okay, I knew someone was going to get it. All right. So anyhow, here's another shot. This is, as you can see, there's palm trees everywhere blowing in this apocalyptic wind, right? That's the reason why they're showing the wind blow. I don't know if you've seen this movie, but every time they go to hell, there's like this crazy Holocaust wind that's blowing everywhere. That's a part of the plasma apocalypse. When the world depressurizes, it causes our air to swirl around drastically, causing a world storm, which is also one of the themes I saw on Friday the 13th. Every time when Jason starts to get to the height of his power, there's a storm. There was actually a storm in this movie as well, which was interesting because I've lived in Southern California. There, you almost never hear thunder, okay? Like, occasionally, maybe. But it's not like here in Colorado, right? Where it's like, boom, thunder everywhere. Anytime you see a storm, there's going to be thunder. California, it just kind of drizzles a lot, you know what I mean? They don't have a lot of lightning and stuff like that. Well, when I was a kid, I should say that. When I grew up in California, it wasn't like that. Nowadays, things are starting to change. Our weather is starting to change. We're starting to see more lightning, more strange anomalies with lights in the sky and all this as the plasma inside starts to charge up. It's getting excited. It's because it's about to meet with the plasma on the outside. It's going to get charged up and get a boost. So you're going to see that reflected in our weather as well. All right, so let's check this out. Keanu Reeves plays John Constantine. We already sort of talked about his name, right? We could break it down. What does Constantine actually mean? Constant, eternal, you could say, right? John is short for an ancient name, either Yochanan or Yahwahanan, which means it's grace of Yahweh, basically, is what that translates into. And that's sort of a loose translation. So the grace of Yahweh, eternal. That's what his name could mean. Or it could mean, John is also short for Jonathan or Yahweh Natan, which means gift of Yahweh, eternal gift of Yahweh, right? So we're talking about eternal life. We're talking about living forever. Because this guy right here throughout the entire movie is basically like, I got to do good because I'm going to die and I don't want to end up in hell and die over and over and over. I want to live in heaven with eternal life. And that's what happens up there, okay? That's why heaven is portrayed as eternal life. Once you push through the boundaries and confines of this world, conditions are a lot different, which promote way long lifespans, right? And once the sky opens up, like I said, it's going to be very difficult for people to actually die here for a time. Now, Rachel Weisz, she was actually in a movie with him as well. But her name is Angela Dodson. Now, Angela, we could probably figure out, right? Angela is short for angel, right? Or messenger, you could say. That's the Watchers, that's the demons, that's the angels, that's the bipedal Fantazoids, space travelers, whatever you want to call them. Aliens, whatever. So, I looked up Dodson, right? I'm not going to read all of this, but I will read a part here. This unusual surname is a variant form of Dodson. Itself is a patronymic. That means a name that was handed down through the males in the family of Middle English, given the name Dod or Dud, from Old English pre-7th century personal byname Doda Duda. Ultimately from a Germanic root, dud or dod, something rounded. Stay with me on it. It's going to make sense in a minute. Something rounded. So dod, this first part, means something rounded, right? Used to denote a short, rotund man, or possibly a bald one, from dod, to make bare or cut off. Just like how when Keanu Reeves put that little glass jar around the spider earlier, he cut it off from the rest of the world, right? Something rounded, cut off. This is what is implied by the word dod, right? Now remember, in ancient languages, the vowels don't matter that much, okay? Often they're actually replaceable with many other vowels, and it's pretty much the same word. So the thing that matters the most is the consonants. So I looked this up in Phoenician and even in modern Hebrew, and this is dalet vav dalet, or dude. Like for those of you who say dude, you're basically saying they're out of shape. They're rounded. That's what that means, right? The cowboys were the ones who were in shape. They're out there doing all the work. All the dudes from the city are fat and lazy, and that's why they get called dudes. I don't even know if they know that, but that's where that comes from. All right, so check this out. One Elfweird dude appears in the Old English by-name register for Hampshire circa 1030 in an Aluric dod in the Domesday Book of 1086. For Orset, the patronymic has the unusual distinction of being first recorded in Domesday. I'm like, wait a minute, Domesday Book? What the heck is the Domesday Book? So I wanted to look up what the Domesday Book was, right? Why did they call it the Domesday Book? I'm like, don't they mean Doomsday? Name, the Domesday Book got its name because its lists were so complete that it reminded people of the Last Judgment, Judgment Day, right? Which people also call Doomsday or Domesday in Christianity, when lists of what people had done go before God of people to be judged. They're talking about the Book of Life and the Book of Revelation, right? Not the Book of Revelations, but Revelation, right? Which is not even a big deal at all. I used to actually pick on people about that. But that was one of the things that was pointed out in this little X-ray special feature on Amazon. But this is interesting. They used to call Doomsday Domesday. I'm sorry, that was really loud. It was all up in the microphone, but wow! Doomsday, that's where it comes from. It doesn't come from the word doom. It comes from the word dome. Something rounded, to cut off, right? The dome is introduced, cutting this world off from the rest of the realms, or from space, or from the ether, whatever you want to call it, right? This is really interesting to me. All right, so let's check this out. Now, this is sort of like Keanu Reeves' home base of operations. You know how Batman has like his R&D department or whatever, or he's got his Bat Cave and he's got a lot of cool stuff. Well, Keanu Reeves gets the back section of the bowling alley. Now, this bowling alley, I paused it right here. Clearly, there's a 666 right there on the wall, right? This is where Keanu Reeves works, in this bowling alley with the 666. All right, so then we go, they find the alcoholic priest or whatever that had died. Before he died, he was trying to send a message to Constantine. So he like took a corkscrew and started shoving it into his hand, and he drew this picture right here, which Constantine's right-hand man, well, I'll show you him in just a minute because his name is actually pretty important. So he draws it down on a napkin. Once again, you can see it's just like the other guy who had this mark on his arm with the cross or the X, right? And the circle right there depicting the North Pole, or possibly, as above so below, something that's above the North Pole that people see in the sky. This is the bowling alley. Bowl, bowl, bowl. Something round to cut off. A covering, the spider, the glass. This is all telling you something, okay? 3 times in a row, or 6 if you count these little ones right here, right? It's a bowl. If you don't believe me, they actually took out one of the lights on the bowl to make it bow, right? Rainbow, bow, something covering, right? Or if you turn it upside down, it is a bowl. Just like Admiral Byrd. Many of you know the story of Admiral Byrd. He went to the North Pole. There is the stories about how he actually found an entrance into the hollow earth, went inside of the earth. After that, the government became really interested, hired him to go out to Antarctica, of all places, the frozen desert of nothingness, right? A place that no one should actually give two cares about whatsoever, because it's allegedly just snow and ice and totally unlivable. So why are the governments of the world so interested in it, right? So they send Admiral Byrd after he goes to the North Pole all the way to the South Pole, right? And one of the projects that he was working on was called Project Fishbowl. Interesting. All right, let's see here. Let's see what else we got. Oh, there's also a little pharmacy market down there too. That's interesting. The origin of the word pharmacy is pharmakia. That's where we get our word sorcery from. That's what sorcery is. When you divide up the roots of different plants and stuff in order to mix them together and you get something else, that in the book of Enoch is what was taught by the angels. One of the things that was taught by the fallen angels to mankind. There was one angel in charge of the pharmakia. He taught mankind how to divide the roots and taught them sorcery. So when you go to your pharmacy or your drug store, which is what it used to be called, because it's a store that sold drugs, right? I mean, come on. That is sorcery. So all the people that work there in their white lab coats, I mean, you would think, right? Like, you would think they wouldn't want them to be white because you're going to get dirty. You're at work, right? Doctors, all that stuff. They wear white all white represents beings from space. The Fantazoid race, basically. All right, so let's move on. Now, this is Constantine's right-hand man, B-Man, right? He's on the phone with Constantine. He says, B-Man. And he says it just like that. But his name is literally B-Man, the man of bees, right? Or the B-Man. Now, this is symbolic because the initiates, right, of Freemasonry, the Illuminati, all this stuff, they typically have these symbols. One of the symbols is a bee or a queen bee, or sometimes it is a beehive, because I think, and it's my guess, that the beehive itself represents space, right? I don't think space is empty. I believe space is really full and has these little holes in it everywhere, if you want to call it that, that are these entrances to other places. Remember last week we broke down RIPD, right? They went up through the hole in the sky, out there into space, and there were all these holes everywhere from these other realms because they had their own little vortexes, right? And that's what it looks like. It looks like a big old beehive in there. Or like Into the Spider-Verse. You know, it looks like a spider web. Everything's sort of connected and stretched out and stuff. Anyhow, so this is his guy B-Man. And above him is a bunch of glass as well. These are all these little glass jars, right? Bowl, jar, covering, etc. It's all over this movie. All right, so this girl starts getting involved. She starts off as a non-believer, and she starts to get more into the believer side of things. And one of the things that she first notices is when these demons come out, she smells sulfur, right? I did a breakdown on the movie Labyrinth as well, and we figured out that, or I shared with everyone, that the bog of eternal stench from the movie Labyrinth, it smells like that because of sulfur. That's what it is, and that's what it does. That's the same component in a skunk that makes a skunk smell so bad, is the sulfur component to it, right? So she associates the smell of sulfur with these demons during this plasma apocalypse cycle, or this worldwide reset, right? I believe that sulfur is going to play a pretty big part in this whole event as well, right? And I'm actually going to save this talk for when I talk about holy water here in a minute. But you also see it in Shrek, right? You know that sulfur doesn't smell good because in Shrek's trying to cross that drawbridge to go to the dragon, which represents plasma as well. And Donkey's like, ew, Shrek, that was messed up. You know, like he passed gas or something. And Shrek's like, Donkey, that's brimstone, which is another word for sulfur, basically. So we cut back to this guy because the directors wanted to make sure we didn't forget about him because he plays this little tiny part. Meanwhile, little Mexican dude is taking the Spear of Destiny, like, on this cross-country trip to wherever he's going. And in the background, they've got another billboard. It says, "Got faith?" And it shows a spigot with water turning into wine, right? It's all white because it's a milk commercial, but we've already figured out milk is one of the symbols that the initiates, that the illuminated ones, that secret societies, whatever, they use milk as a symbol for two things. One, space, being from space, especially the bad guys who are from space, the ones who are in charge of this world currently, basically, the ones who are running these things currently. Charge, that's a good word to use, actually. The ones who are charging this world right now. Anyway, so it's all white because of the milk thing. Got milk. It's obviously a milk-oriented thing. That's a reference to space and beings from space, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. I don't like calling it space, but I haven't thought of a better word for it yet. When I do, I'll probably use it. Then we have the water turning into wine. Well, I don't know. Is it actually wine that the water turns into? Or does something happen and it changes the color of water? Like, I don't know, the water getting sucked up into the sky and mixing with all of this debris and stuff in this one world storm when there's zero gravity and there's all this dirt and all this, stuff up in the air, and then it rains back down. Red? Blood red? Could be. Could be. Sean Wheeler says, your space theory reminds me of the end of Lawnmower Man when he's trying to get out. Kind of a honeycombish symbolism. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I vaguely remember those scenes, but I know what you're talking about, and I think you might be right. Ted Ozzy says, JayDreamerZ, I like skunk smell / sulfur. I find it pleasant, and I'm aware it's very odd and suspect. Yeah, well, that's like, you're kind of like that little dog in the Labyrinth. I don't know if it's a skunk or a dog, but he's the one that's guarding the bridge. And he's like, I smell nothing. The air is sweet. And no one shall pass without my permission, or whatever, right? Well, you can get used to it. Lots of people get used to it. But that's what happens is these beings, they typically kind of have an odor to them, right? Like ogres, trolls, like however these beings are depicted, quite often, even Bigfoot. You can tell that they're around because they've been around sulfur so much, typically if they're from the inner earth as well. I'm just going to throw that out there. Yeah, they have that sulfur smell to them. So here's what happens. This girl who was the non-believer, she starts saying, okay, I want to save my twin sister who's allegedly in hell because she committed suicide. That's why Constantine went there and astral traveled there. So she's like, I want to believe again because my sister has psychic powers and I used to, but I forgot how to do it. So she's like, give me the crash course. Constantine's like, all right, cool, get in the bath, right? So she hops into this bath and she's like, so why water? Like, why do I have to stand in this bathtub? And he's like, well, he gives her an explanation, but it's basically kind of like you'll see. But he says it's a universal conduit. That's interesting. That's an electrical term. I don't know if you know that, but a conduit is something that basically is like a highway to move electricity. So she says, why water? His explanation is water is a universal conduit. But he doesn't stop there. We're talking about space, remember? And beings from space. And all the stuff that happens when space meets with our world during the depressurization. He says it lubricates, let me move this up, lubricates the transition from one plane to another. So basically, in essence, what he's saying is if you were to leave this world, let's say that the hole in the sky opens up or the eye in the sky opens up. You go through it, you're properly protected or whatnot, right? When you go into these other worlds, there's going to be water. Because they're going to have their own little domes or their own little snow globe formations or whatever. The plasma is not going to go into their world and become the world eater or anything. All those realms are going to be protected the same way our realm is protected from time to time. And you're going to have water because it's a byproduct of plasma of that degree. All right, so we go back to this demon. Now we're going to talk about holy water because Constantine busts through this mirror, which I'll show you in a minute, and he's pissed off at this demon. So he throws this little ball, right? This little weapon of holy water, right? Throws it right at the demon's face. It explodes all over his face and reveals the demon for who he really is. Now, basically, this is an homage to like Two-Face, or this is an homage to the Phantom of the Opera. All these characters, okay, are representatives of the vampire race, the elven race, the El, the Elu, the Elohim, and so on and so forth. They are the bipedal Fantazoids, right? For some reason, they have this aversion to water. Just like how we talked about when we broke down Dark City. Remember I was showing you those weird Uncle Fester alien-looking dudes, right? And the scientist guy, he liked to hang out in the spa. He liked to hang out in that pool area because he says they have an aversion to water. Some might even call it a phobia, right? Well, there's this interesting thing about water. Is it actually water that hurts them? Or is this directly related with the sulfur smell? Maybe this is sulfuric acid. Maybe there's some sort of an acid that is also a byproduct of what happens when you have this alchemical changing of our world, when the plasma shoots up through the ground, which is another part of it. I talk a lot about the plasma coming down from the sky, but there's the spear of destiny that we're going to get to here in a minute, right? Which is, I talked about it in my blue fairy video, right? That's the blue light, Project Bluebeam, the plasma that shoots up from the middle of our world, from the North Pole. And it might actually be able to create lots of different things. Nitrous oxide being one of them, giving people a ridiculous laugh or smile. And the other one, of course, I mean water and stuff like that, but the things we're not so familiar with would be acid. And acid might be actually up there around our dome on the top version after you hit that flip point of where gravity goes up instead of down. Anyway, you might have to catch up on some of my videos to understand that a bit more. I know that was a lot all at once. But simply put, I think that this holy water, that's what holy means, kodesh, which means set apart. Right? Which means different, which means it's set aside for some reason, something special about it. This is not just regular water that's just been blessed, in nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, boom, it's holy water. No, I don't think that's where that comes from. I think that's the cartoonified version. There is this special water that is associated with these other beings, and when you throw it on them, right, it melts their face. It starts corroding them. Well, what else? What other kind of thing that looks like water is corrosive? But acid. So that's I'm pretty strong on that one, but I'm open-minded, but I'm thinking that holy water is actually acid. All right, so like I said, he actually busts in through here. Oh yeah, good point. Ted Ozzy says El in Stranger Things also used water and salt baths to remote view. Good one. That's a good one because he does that in this one too, right? All right, so Constantine busts through this mirror. So he goes through the mirror, and on the other side of the mirror is this otherworldly experience that he has with this otherworldly being. It's the passing through the mirror symbolism again, right? That's the mirror above us. That is the whole ceiling to our world right above us. So this demon, his face is all corroded. He's got half his face off, or his true self is being revealed, right? And Constantine just wants to know what's going on, basically. Like, he sees this influx of demon activity, and he's like, what's going on? What is the son of Satan? Because in this movie, Satan has a son, just like God has a son. And he says, whatever killed the son of God will give birth to the son of the devil. Well, let's think about that. Let's just think about that for a minute. Whatever killed the son of God. Okay, well, that would be the spear of destiny, right? The spear of destiny. Remember at the beginning? Whoosh, the guy took the spear. It wasn't the cross. It wasn't that killed him. It was the spear going right up into him, right? Killed the sun. The sunlight disappears, right? Some might say that sun equates to the sun in the sky, which is a skylight or a focal point of light that comes in from the plasma above. So whatever killed the sun or made the sun go dark or turned the sun off is going to give birth to the sun or the light of the devil. Well, what color is the devil's light? Red. I mean, come on. We all know that, right? It's pretty much the color that's associated with the devil, right? So we continue on. He says, well, the subtitles are not important here. What is important here is that they put in these interesting little things, just like at the bowling alley, how they hid the little 666. Well, 5 and 1, 5 and 1, 5 and 1, 666. Once again, that is plasma apocalypse symbolism. It is a symbol of the infinite spiral. 6 3 times indicates, you might as well just put a line over it. Like if this was math and you put a line over some numbers, that means it continues on forever. Okay, I don't know if they had that a long time ago, but they would just make it 3 times in a row and it indicated it's infinite. It just keeps on going and going and going, right? We live in a fractalverse. That's one of the ways that you can indicate that, right? Is a repetitive thing. So 666, spiral, spiral, spiral. It could be 999. It doesn't matter. All right, let's continue on here. So we have a picture here that they keep looking at, this is a picture that initial Mexican girl at the beginning who was all possessed and they held the mirror over her. This was on her refrigerator. She had been drawing this while she was plasma possessed with this demon inside of her. And as you can see, I mean, initially, when you first look at this, you might think that this is just blood all the way around. But if you look, there's no blood on the spear. They said stains on the spear, but there's no red on the spear whatsoever. This, I believe, is the plasma influx in the world. The plasma that is everywhere. It's going to be all over the place. Just like in Ghostbusters when they had released the containment unit or whatever, and all those ghosts went everywhere, the plasma is going to be everywhere, all over the place. So I think this is representative of the plasma over here on this side. And then you have the spear of destiny that shoots up, that kills the sun, right? That makes this the focal point, because what really happens is that the polarity of our world reverses, okay? The direction of the flow of light reverses. Instead of light coming down at us and creating a focal point called the sun, or I call it the skylight, but we grew up calling it the sun. So the sun dies, right? It kills the spear of destiny, shoots up, kills the sun, gets rid of it, and the light reverses. It goes up. This is typically, I'm surprised it wasn't drawn blue here, but it's a movie. But this is that Project Bluebeam that shoots up from the middle of our world. That's what this is all about. This is the blue fairy. This is the tree of life. This is the beanstalk. This is Jacob's ladder. It's depicted and shared in various ways. All right, now let's check this guy out. Remember the red room, that club that was all red that I showed you? Remember he had to be a psychic basically to get in. He had to prove his powers in order to get in. By the way, that's also a crucial part of getting into heaven, or getting into space, or getting into other places beyond, is in some of these older cultures, in the stories, the older stories in some of these cultures, a figure will be trying to gain entrance into hell or into heaven or into another dimension or whatever. And they constantly have to sort of they have to pass a test basically. And the test is, are you psychic? Are you connected? Right? Are you electromagnetically connected like us? Right? So they have this test. Anyway, so this is the red room, and this is, what was his name? Papa Midnight, I believe was his name. So here's Papa Midnight. He's the guy who's in charge of this red room area. The red room, red rum, just like it was said in the chat a bit ago. And he starts praying, but he's praying in Latin, right? Well, I learned a long time ago that the word Latin, at first I learned that Latin was a dead language, right? That's what they tell us. Oh, Latin's a dead language. And that's sort of its epithet. That's how it's known. It's known as the dead language. But it's not really dead, is it? I mean, it's being used all over the place, especially by people who seem to have some serious knowledge about some stuff that nobody else knows, right? They're all speaking Latin. Well, why, right? The word italics comes from Latin. The country Italy comes from Latin. And Latin essentially does mean hidden. But let's break it down, right? It starts off with lat, right? And then in. Remember, you can pretty much cross out the vowels. The vowels are usually replaceable, right? Lot, on. This is the original. This is the root, is LT or LOT, okay? And then on, like I've said many times, the suffix on means of thee. It means like one of thee, okay? So what does lot mean, or lot, right? It means covering. Covering, rounded, dome, to cut off. It's like, this is all imagery. This is all words that are being given to us, and they're hidden. This is only for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, biblically speaking, right? That's what Jesus says, basically. So, lot is a covering. That's what that means, right? Sometimes they'll play with the vowels and stuff. Sometimes you might have a character named Lotan, or, you know what I mean? Like they'll play with the words. They'll write it in different ways. But for those of us who understand how to read words, and we understand how to break it down to its simplest forms, right? The root of it, the prefix, the suffix, and then the root. Then we can figure out easily what it's in reference to, especially when there's all this other symbolism in order to give more context to it. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so here, this girl, her sister initially jumped off of this building, off this hospital building, and she crashed through some more glass, landed in this water, and they have her landing perfectly in this sort of cruciform shape, right? This sort of cross shape or whatnot. She lands in the water, and immediately, once she gets out of the water, she can see all these demons, she can see the devil, all this stuff. This is symbolic of transitioning from one state to another state, right? From one dimension to another, from one realm to another, from one existence to another, from one reality to another. This is the Sipapu of the Hopi, right? The place of the crossing in the sky. That is the cross in the sky. That is the entrance in the sky. This is also Nibiru, okay? Nibiru is not a planet. Sorry, I don't mean to burst that bubble. There could be a realm out there called Nibiru. I'm sure, yeah. Could be a Nibiru realm out there somewhere. But Nibiru literally means place of the crossing, loosely translated, okay? You could translate it in some other ways, but it always has that crossing part in it. Nibiru. It's the place of the crossing, or the place of the cross, or the place where one crosses over. You see what I'm saying? Or a cross. Now, the word cross, this is really interesting too. So you could probably share this. This is an interesting table trivia for dinner. I'm just kidding. You probably not want to do it at dinner. But the word cross did not used to be in the older Bibles. It was the word stauros. And that's a Greek word. Okay. It was retranslated into the word cross. This is a cross. A plus sign, basically, right? An intersection. But stauros does not mean cross at all. It means staff, right? It means a stake sticking up and shooting up out of the ground. That's literally where the word cross comes from, okay? So in the original Bibles and all the old manuscripts and whatnot, they didn't have Jesus hanging on a cross, right? Sometimes they referenced it and said it was a tree, which is the tree of life, which is the spear of destiny, which is the light that shoots up out of the ground. But there was no cross beam section originally in ancient paganism or in ancient Christianity, however you want to look at it, right? Both are pretty much the same thing, depending on your perspective. But according to what we went over initially, breaking down Constantine and the very beginnings of Christendom, right? In all of its wonderful glory, it was pagan in its roots, in its origins. So initially, they didn't have a cross section. Initially, they had a beam. That's all. A blue beam, okay? Shooting up out of the ground. It's Stauros. This is actually the name I go by when I play Dungeons and Dragons. For those of you who want some interesting trivia about myself, I am the wizard Stauros. I love it. Anyway, all right, so let's keep on going. Hey, Dennis L's in the chat and says, dome in Russian means house. That's awesome. I like to know that. That's really cool. Dome in Russian means house. Is it dome or dome? Regardless, right? Ted Ozzy says, JayDreamerZ, in the post-apocalyptic anime called Fire Force, the Church of Soul, S-O-L, pray with latum instead of amen. Ooh, that's interesting. Wow. Man, I'm so glad that so many of you watch all these anime and stuff and share that information with me. I've never been a huge anime fan. I just couldn't get into it when I was younger. You know what I mean? But I love all the stuff that seems to be hidden inside of it. There seems to be a lot of truth going on in anime. So let's check this out. These are some more of the plasma-possessed people. Remember, I said she falls into that baptismal pool, which is what that is, by the way. That's why I actually visited one earlier today. You could check out my stories mode, and I'll show you the baptismal pool that I visited. It wasn't full, right? It was empty. Dang. But anyway, these people all have their glowing red eyes. So they are plasma-possessed. They are influenced demonically. They're out to kill, steal, destroy. Well, not steal. I don't know about stealing, but they're under the influence of the plasma, which is here to clean house, while it is connected to the source. And it only amplifies the energy that it possesses. I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying plasma is evil. I'm not saying that it is bad whatsoever. I'm saying it is an amplifier. Okay. When it's connected to the source, it has a program, which is clean house. Once that hole is sealed up in the sky and we are a pressurized system once again, and everything's back to normal or semi back to normal, right? It's cut off from its programming. It now has free will. It can now do whatever it wants to do. So it doesn't instantly guarantee that the plasma itself is bad. Okay. There are certain conditions. So try to remember some of these things as we go along. If you have negative, bad vibes, it's going to make you a murderer, basically. It's going to turn you into, remember how we talked about the Rolling Stones? I mean, not the Rolling Stones. What was it? The Doors, that music from the Doors. There's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. That's the plasma possession, right? That's exactly what we're talking about here. Also, the movie Mandy. That's the name of that other movie with Nicolas Cage I was telling you about. There's a lot of plasma possession going on in that movie as well. All right, let's keep going. All right, so now we get towards the end of the movie. This is Lucifer. They don't call him Satan, which I think is really interesting, right? Because that's more of a name I believe people are more familiar with. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm more familiar with like the bad guy's name being Satan, right? Satan. That's like, people say Hail Satan or whatever. But they don't call this guy Satan. They call him Lucifer, even though it's clear that, they're one and the same being, right? Or entity, I should say, right? So Lucifer breaks through the glass door like Jason Voorhees in rage mode. Like he breaks right through the glass door. He could have opened it. Like, this dude has serious powers. I saw he has all kinds of power. Doesn't open the door. Doesn't just use his telekinesis and open the door. No, just breaks open this glass door. Why did they have him do that? Because he is the light bringer, right? One son was the son of God. One son, aka focal point in the sky, light source in the sky, right, is the son of Satan, or the son of Lucifer, the light bringer, right? He's wearing all white, which tells you, usually they show like angels or somebody wearing all white, because typically they try to imply that all white means purity. Like, oh, you're pure, you're all white, you're clean, or whatever. No, it means you're from space. That's what that implies. They can't put that same type of a skin, like how the Fantazoid demons that I showed you guys earlier. I don't know if I have one. I'll talk about that in a second. But the Fantazoid demons, they have that sort of pearlescent sort of a shimmer to them. They're white with a little bit of color in there. You know what I mean? They can't really do that to all the actors. So the easiest way to represent that with people, with humans, is to just have them dress in all white. It represents beings from space, basically, right? And he crashes through the glass, more glass breaking. He's coming in through the dome, just like Pennywise, trying to smack his face against the glass, trying to get in. This is Lucifer coming into the world, basically. Or the light bringer, Prometheus, whatever you want to call him. He's gone by many names. Disney's Moana, he was Moana, and what's that guy's name? I totally forgot. What's the guy's name? The guy that sings the You're Welcome song. Anyway, he's basically Lucifer in that movie too. All right, so the devil, right, Lucifer, he's like, all right, Constantine, I got you, because Constantine had killed himself. He came back to life when he was younger, right, but he died for a couple minutes. But in Catholicism, if you kill yourself, it pretty much guarantees you go to hell, right? So this guy's trying to earn his way back into heaven throughout the whole movie. And at the end of the movie, he sacrifices himself. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. He sacrifices himself, and God is like watching. And so all of a sudden, when Lucifer's trying to drag him away, one second, sorry. When Lucifer's trying to drag him away, he sacrificed himself, so it earned him a spot in heaven. And he had killed himself in order for all of this to even happen. So he died twice now. So Lucifer is like, come on with me. But he starts rising up. He starts floating up into like heaven, right? And as he's going up there, he looks back and gives the bird to Lucifer as he's starting to go up into heaven, which is just like in This Is the End, right? With Seth Rogen. One of the guys is like, yeah, I'm getting sucked up into heaven. And he starts flipping off his friends. Like, it's supposed to be really funny. It's kind of funny, right? Sort of not funny, but it sort of is funny. Anyway, the moment he does that blue beam turns off and he falls back down to the ground. Well, the moment that Constantine flips him off, right? This is all about your energy, okay? This is all about your frequency and your vibration. He flips off the devil, says, screw you. And the devil reaches in and says, all right, well, I'm going to make you come back to life here on earth then, in the hopes that Constantine's going to prove that he's actually evil so that he can have a third try to get into hell, because Lucifer wants Constantine in hell. And as you can see, the way they portray heaven here, it is that white light with a slight sort of a sherbety kind of a color to it, sort of a shimmer, sort of a shine, right? There's a little color in there, but it's mostly white. That's heaven. That's space. That's up there. That's what that is. Now, in the movie, they'll show you, they have like these buildings or whatever up there, but that's the color of space. That's why they do that, okay? And that is our breakdown of the movie Constantine. I'd like to open up the chat. If anybody has any questions, type in @JayDreamerZ, and I'll go ahead and read it, and then we'll wrap things up with some good old-fashioned credits and some awesome music. Dennis L says cross is upside down sword. That's exactly what that is. Remember how in the Bible, I don't know if you guys have read it, but in the Bible it talks about Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, right? And so what God did was there was this tree of life, and he didn't want them to be able to eat from the tree of life and live forever, right? AKA the blue beam in the sky that takes you up into heaven or into space where conditions are different and allow you to live for much longer. So God set a flaming sword that moved this way and that way, all the way around the tree of life. The flaming sword, in my mind, sounds like it's symbolic of electricity that is bzz, bzz, like dancing all the way around. This is all electromagnetic. Good catch, too. Oh, yeah, the doctor from Minority Report. Good catch, Sean. That's absolutely the doctor from Minority Report. Also, he's the Russian astronaut, right? He also plays another guy from space in Armageddon. Remember that iconic part when he's like, "This how we fix things on Russian space station?" He just starts beating the heck out of it. That was one of my favorite parts that this dude has been in. I really like this actor. He seems like a cool guy. Maui, that's his name. I know. Every once in a while, I've got so much information in here, something squeezes out from time to time. Maui. So yeah, Maui from Moana. He is Prometheus. He is Lucifer. That's what he is. And he's like, I was stuck here for 1,000 years to try to help you mortals or whatever, right? Well, 1,000 years, an eon, you know. This all gets into reality, an actual hidden history of ourselves. And it's just rewritten, it's repackaged and given back to us in the form of entertainment. But for those of us who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, we're not entertained. I mean, we still can be entertained. This movie is very entertaining, but not amused. Amuse means without thought, right? We are not the type to be amused or amused. We are the type to be mused or museful, right? That's why museums are places you go to think, not places you go, wow, look at that. Wow, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Wow, look at that. I mean, you don't think about it. You don't process any of it, you know? You just go there and people are like, this is the way that it is. Check this out. It's a wax caveman pulling some lady by her hair. That's your history. I don't know. I don't know about that. Constantine thinks he beat the devil. Right. Good point, Rue. So we go back to the actual historic story of Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, who accepted Christianity on his deathbed in order to make it into heaven or whatever, right? Well, he was already a Christian. I'm just going to say that. It's just he might not have been a Jesus believer, but he was a Christian of sorts because there were lots of different forms of Christianity like we talked about at the beginning, right? I can't wait to eat some of these Whoppers, man. Hey, what's you guys' favorite movie food? I want to ask the chat. Let me ask some of you guys. What's your favorite movie snacks, right? I used to like popcorn, but nowadays it's a little too dry for my mouth. So I like Whoppers a lot. I just bite a little hole inside of them, and then I suck all the air out of them. I try to make them last for a really long time. I like Thin Mints and Whoppers and Reese's Pieces. Those are probably my top 3. What do you guys like? Oh, I can't wait. I hope I get to watch Friday the 13th Part 6 tonight. I can't wait. I love watching. There's always a storm, dude. Oh, there's a storm. And Jason's he gets superpowers during a storm. It's awesome. Semyaza's in chat says, JayDreamerZ pulls John back to prove himself worthy. Oh, right. So John Constantine, right? He gets pulled back into the real world because he has to sort of prove that he's worthy in order to go, which is a part of the leap of faith. That's a part of Project Bluebeam. That's a part of using Jacob's ladder in order to get into heaven or space or the beyond the skyline, right? Because some people might take that leap of faith and float upwards because they have a certain resonance, they have a certain frequency or a good vibe. Maybe. I don't know. I'm still looking into it. Some people might not. Or maybe it just depends on what time you go there. Maybe there's a time you go there when if you go, you're going to go down, right? Or when it's turned on and that blue beam is shooting up, you're going to go up, right? All right, so let's see who else is in the chat. Ted Ozzy says that JayDreamerZ, the flaming swords could also be dragons. Just sounds cooler. Hey, call it what you like. Tomato. When I hear dragon, I hear plasma. right? Either that or Fantazoids. Typically, the kaiju class Fantazoids that come in from above, those are the really big Fantazoids, right? Like the giant-sized Fantazoids. And to me, that those could also be depicted as dragons, the actual physical representations, right? Or just the plasmas. But if it's a dragon with arms and legs and stuff, and it's sort of scaly and it has an exoskeleton, to me that implies kaiju type of Fantazoid. But if it's one of those dragons that looks like a worm in the sky that's just slowly floating with no arms and no legs, and it's usually red and has associated with fire, to me, I hear plasma. Good point, though. Longle, hey Longle, what's up? Says, hey Jay, how goes it? Going good for me. Not too bad. Jolly Ranchers, Semyaza likes... William Marquez likes goobers. Are those the raisins? Are those the chocolate-covered raisins? Those are not bad. I like goobers from time to time. Jolly Ranchers, ooh, man. I hear you. I do. You know what? I'm going to tell you a secret. I used to be very concerned about my looks when I was in high school. So before I went to high school, I would check my tongue, right? I'd brush my tongue and be like, oh, gross. My tongue's got, it's got some white on there. It's not, nobody's tongue is like pure red. You know what I mean? Like they show you in the cartoons and stuff, right? And for some reason, I thought that meant that you were more healthy. And so I'm like, oh, my tongue isn't super red. I would pop a red Jolly Rancher and suck on it and rub my tongue all over it so that I looked healthier. And I don't know. It's so retarded. It's things we do when we're teenagers, right? Sean Wheeler says, jujubes. What are jujubes? I've heard of those. I don't know if I've ever had a jujube. Sour cream. Oh, sour cream and onion chips. Okay. I thought you just meant sour cream by itself and onions. Okay. Sour cream and onion chips. Okay. Raisinets. Zen Atman likes raisinets. Not bad. Popcorn and raisinets. Popular one. Mother Dragon. Mother Dragon knows what's up, he says. Peanuts. Just plain peanuts? Okay. They stopped giving out peanuts on the airplane a long time ago because of allergies or whatever. I like peanuts. Actually, personally, I like cashews a lot. I love cashews. I don't know why they're so expensive, but man, I love cashews. If I eat peanuts, I can do peanuts from time to time, but it's got to be like the honey roasted ones. I like those ones the best. But I have a sweet tooth, which I'm trying to get rid of because I got some cavities apparently. So I'm going to have to go get that taken care of. What did I think of It Part 2? Plasma apocalypse. Like, that's all I saw. Plasma apocalypse all over the place. A lot of truth, a lot of great stuff. Once It Chapter 2 comes out, then I'm fully going to, if nobody nominates it for me to break down, I'm going to nominate it. It doesn't mean I'll pick it or anything because I want to be fair. But I would like to break down It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2 because I don't think I have stressed enough about it. Because people keep asking me, what do you mean it? What is it? And I feel like I've tried to be clear about it, but it's one of those topics I have a very specific thought in mind, but that's why it's called It, because you can't really describe it. I hope they do a remake of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I want to see them combine Attack of the Killer Tomatoes with Swamp Thing and The Toxic Avenger. All these really old movies that were super original in the late 70s, early 80s or something, I love all those ones. Twizzlers. Oh, man. Okay. See, I can't do soft, chewy candy. I don't like it when it gets stuck in my mouth, like taffy or something. I can't do taffy. I just can't do it. It tastes good, but I can't do it. McDonald's cheeseburgers, no onions. Oh my God, I almost threw up. I almost puked. I used to love McDonald's, but I have not eaten there for probably at least 10 years. Probably. But I hear you on that. McDonald's fries are so addictive that they have McDonald's fry stands at Disneyland. Instead of selling, ice cream or cotton candy or whatever, they actually have little stands only to sell McDonald's French fries. It says used to sneak 4 of them in the theater. I hear you on that. I used to be about Arby's. I used to like Arby's a lot. I would take like their own little Arby's sandwiches with a special sauce. I would pound 4 or 5 of those things easy. I can't do that now because my appetite has way diminished. I'm not as interested in eating as I used to be, but occasionally I appreciate a good snack. You know what I mean? Just something that hits the spot. Rue watched Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Nice. It's one of the cheesiest movies ever. Ever. The worst acting. It's supposed to be a funny movie. It's supposed to be like a horror comedy type thing, right? William Marquez says, JayDreamerZ, with all of the work that you do, when do you have time to play Dungeons & Dragons? Well, actually, I haven't done that in a while. I have not played Dungeons & Dragons in a while. So what I do for fun now, like for example, all day today, since the moment I woke up, I dropped my son off at his mom's house and I came straight back home. I immediately jumped on the computer and I rewatched Constantine. That's pretty much what I did all day today. I did take a break to take my dog, up to the Catholic Church where I recorded a stories mode thing, but I guess that's not taking a break because that's also a part of YouTube. So, I mean, it was fun for me. So it's work, but it's also play. And that's what I want to do with my life. I want to play. Then we went to the gas station so I can get something to drink and I got her a treat. And then we went to Jimmy John's so I can get a veggie sandwich. And then we came home and we finished up things and I started getting things ready, for the software program that I use, so it all, matches up and it all looks good and stuff. So I pretty much did that all day. In between times, I'll take like a 5 or 10 minute break, and I'll play Clash Royale on my phone, which is a little video game that I play. At the end of the night, like tonight, hopefully I'll have time to lay down, watch a movie with Jenny. She'll probably go to sleep or something. I don't have a lot of free time, honestly. I mean, you would think that I'm a YouTuber and people associate that with having all the time in the world, but I'm pretty serious about what I do. So I dedicate a lot of time to it. Weekends are the time when I spend time with my family and that's how I have fun. You know what I mean? Occasionally I'll do something, take some time to myself or whatever, but I'm constantly studying. I'm constantly researching. And like this weekend, my son and I, we turned he's got one of those beds. It's not a bunk bed, but it's like the top portion of a bunk bed and you could put stuff underneath it. I forgot what those are called. So we turned that, we tore up some cardboard and stuff and we turned that into like Jason Voorhees' house. And we were playing, Friday the 13th and pretending and stuff. So I play and stuff. Let's see here. Zen Ottman says, hey JayDreamerZ, did you see the breakdown of Beetlejuice by that Hawaiian dude? I can't remember his name, but maybe somebody got it. I haven't. I've never even seen anyone break down Beetlejuice. I would love to. I would love to break down Beetlejuice. That's a classic movie. Oh, Rue says it was, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was filmed in San Diego where she grew up. The Rickest Rick says, I almost threw up. I used to work for Arby's. Ah, bummer, right? I know. When you used to work there, because I used to work at McDonald's, like, I don't know. That was one of my quick jobs that I had for like 2 weeks. And then I was like, forget this place, right? But yeah, man, all that processed food, I can't do it. I cut out all fast food. Well, I don't know if Jimmy John's is considered, well, I mean, it's pretty fast. But that's like, I'll eat like a Subway sandwich. I'll go to sandwich places, you know what I mean? To get a good sandwich or whatever. I cut out meat from my diet pretty much. So it's like a veggie deluxe or whatever it is where I get it. But I don't go to Wendy's. I don't go to Arby's. I don't go to McDonald's. I don't go to Burger King. Like, I haven't gone to any of those places. Maybe at the last time I went, I might have got some fries or something from like, I don't know, one of those places. But man, like my body started telling me stop. My body was like, if you eat this, I'm going to mess you up. Like, so I literally and physically could not eat fast food anymore. And you know what's crazy too? It's like you can go to the movies, right? When I was a kid, to go see a movie premiere, it was like $7. It's like $7.50, $8 maybe, Then as I got older and a teenager, it was like the charge of a movie was like $10.50. And then I got older and it was like $14 now or whatever it is, these days or whatever. And now they're starting to turn it because they have to compete with like people watching movies in their houses, right? Netflix and all that stuff. So now they have like recliners and they have a bar at the movie theater, which I'm not a fan of that one because I would rather people not be getting drunk while I'm trying to watch this movie. But yeah, movies are getting expensive to go see, man. It's crazy. You know, like you got to sneak stuff in. And I encourage that. Absolutely. Sneak your stuff in. Don't pay $12 for a box of candy or whatever. That's wrong, dude. There should be a law against it or something. Semyaza says Skyline would be a perfect Plasma Apocalypse Thursday movie for decoding, even as a follow-up. Well, I do reference it a lot. I do talk about it a lot. I've covered a bunch of Skyline. They suck up the brains. There's the blue beams everywhere. There's people floating up in the air. All that. So you're right. Where are Whoppers from? Oh, well, I'll eat these Whoppers, right? I'll eat this kind of Whopper. I don't eat Burger King Whoppers. I used to when I was in high school when my metabolism was off the charts. I'd go to Burger King after school with my my little what I get for an allowance. I conned my mom into giving me an allowance, basically. Right? I kind of made her feel bad that I wasn't getting an allowance because we were very poor. And I'm like, Mom, I need an allowance. Like I'm growing up. How expect you me to learn how to use money if I don't have an allowance or whatever? And for a little while that worked. And I took my allowance and I pretty much wasted it. Either my brother and I, we were huge horror movie fans. We were the biggest horror movie fans in the whole world. We would usually go down to the little Asian video store. And, you know, we would rent like 5 movies for $5 or whatever. All horror movies. We'd go to like the dollar store. We'd get like cheap, gigantic things of soda and candy or whatever with like $10. Like we stretched that $10. And we would stay up all night long on the weekends and we would watch horror movies and stuff. It was great. But after school, I would go to Burger King sometimes if I had extra money or when I did get a job. And yeah, I would get like probably a big Whopper with cheese and everything on it, a huge fry, a huge onion ring, a big shake, a soda, and probably one of their pies or something, and still be hungry in a little while after that, right? It was crazy. That's because I ran everywhere. I was a runner. Oh, wow. William Marquez says they still have drive-in movie theaters in Amarillo, $8 a person. Hey, I'd pay $8 to see 2 movies at the drive-in. The drive-in is a classic experience, man. I love it. Like, that's an experience, right? When you go to these movies today, it's just like, it's weird. I don't like it. Like, you sit there and you're all staring there, whatever. Like, a long time ago in the early 80s, when I was a kid, you took these huge Cadillacs, these huge cars, right? Sometimes you snuck some people in the trunk. Some people would be in the trunk trying to sneak it in the movie theater, right? Drive into the movie theater, you pull up. It's always nice and cold or crisp outside. It depends on where you lived or whatever. But for me, it was kind of had a cool crisp in the air. So they had these little poles that stuck up. You'd pull up next to these poles. There's this huge metal speaker thing, right? Probably weighed 10 pounds, dude. I don't know. And you pull it out, you roll your window down like that. They didn't have buttons for that. Okay, you rolled it down. This is crazy. This is so weird. You rolled it down, and then you rolled it down partially, like halfway. And then you hung this 10-pound metal thing on your window, hoping it wouldn't snap your glass on your window, right? And it would be like this really crappy, like someone talking through their hand kind of a sound. It was not like Dolby surround sound or anything, okay? This was before you could tune into a radio station. You had to hang this thing on your window. And only one window. It wasn't even on 2 windows or anything. It was just one side, right? So oftentimes they would turn up the volume as high as it would go. Some people would, some people would come in the pickup truck. They'd turn it around. People could like lay out a blanket. You're outside. You could look up and see the stars. You're all watching this huge movie on the screen. Sometimes if you were a kid and you were lucky, they actually had a playground down underneath the screen, right in front of the screen. So sometimes kids, when they're getting too crazy, could go down and play on the playground. People couldn't hear them, like they're way far away and, they're kids playing on the playground. They would have intermissions, right? You could take a break, go to the little snack area. Everyone went and got in line. You could say what's up to people, hang out with people. It was very much a place where you could talk and get to know people, right? It was awesome. I highly recommend it. Sean Wheeler says, JayDreamerZ, I'm working in San Jose, and the movie theater here is 6:50 up to 6 p.m. It's a small Cinelux. Well, that's interesting. especially that they call it Cinelux. Okay, let's see here. I think that's about it. It's a good time to wrap things up. Hey, thank you so much for watching with me, guys. I appreciate it. Stay tuned next week on Monday. We're going to break down the next movie. I don't know what it's going to be yet. The members are going to vote on it. They're going to nominate the movies. Whoever gets the most votes, that's the movie we're going to break down. Will it be Big Hero 6 like Mother Dragon is hoping for? It was really close. I think that came in a close second this time. I didn't even vote this time. I'm just going to throw that out there. I didn't even vote. But yeah, everybody voted for Constantine this time. That was a good movie. Thank you so much for suggesting it. I forgot who suggested it. Let me pull that up before I leave because I would like to give them a nice little shout out. Before we leave and roll the credits, let's find out. My brain's just on overdrive right now. That's why I can't remember. I don't see him in the chat right now. Let's see here. All right, let's go to my channel. And then we'll go to community. And if you're a member, it'll pop all this stuff up. All right, so I did put my Nintendo Switch code in there too in the member section because I do like to play Nintendo Switch from time to time. I'll play Mario Kart or Friday the 13th or stuff. So you can get my Nintendo Switch code and play with me online if you'd like to in the community section. All right, so this movie, I'll tell you all the movies that were nominated. Big Hero 6 was nominated by Mother Dragon. Oh, that actually only got one vote, so I'm sorry. I messed up. That didn't come in second. Toy Story came in second. Any or all of them. And Martina Maternova. That's a cool name. Martina Maternova had 3 votes with Constantine. We also had Close Encounters of the Third Kind came in second as well. Followed by Maze Runner. Bandersnatch. I did kind of talk about Bandersnatch. I have a video on Bandersnatch, William. So check that out. I think you can search my channel. Just type in Bandersnatch. Should be able to find it. That one's a hard one to really fully break down because I have not seen all of the alternate versions, all the alternate endings and stuff, That one would be more difficult, but I have talked about it. I would highly encourage you to check that video out. And Skyline. Semyaza said Skyline. So anyways, all right. Thank you guys so much. Beetlejuice is Subtle Infinity. All right, I got to go, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining me. Stay for the credits. Hang out, and I'll see you guys. Well, I'll see you tomorrow if you're going to be watching The Sylvan Lining. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.